Okay, so Pigeon Flight is working on his first micro SaaS, and he's asking about how to implement the flow of a user signing up for his service, logging in, and then entering an API key, which is stored for the user. So Dorian, do you have any guidance on how to do that?
Probably just like the basic setup without really knowing the true flow. Then we won't really know exactly how he's, trying to store that. But essentially, you have a landing page where they sign up. That will create the user. Depending on the sign up method, then you can either auto sign them in. And the reason I say that is because if they require a verification email or if they're being added to a wait list, there'll be some steps before that will basically flag the user as verified. But if they're immediately verified, then they can immediately sign them in. And then once they take them to the logged in page or the app, they can either use a data collection, or I'm not sure if they're storing that in Bildr or not, but within that page, they can then request for the API key and store it. But without knowing exactly how they're doing it, I won't really know.
Yeah, well, David's on the call right now. So can you let us know, first of all, what's your sign up type? Like, how are you planning to authenticate them in? And
so
yeah, or if you can show us what you currently have set up, we can take a look easier.
So there's not much to show. This is a starter SaaS setup, and I think I may have blown it away because I figured I could just spin it up again.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite happy with what the starter is, and I'll probably iterate in the future. But for what it offers today, the starter SaaS is fine. So sign up with, putting in your email address and choosing a password, that's fine. I'm more interested in storing the API key because the next step after that is I want to be able to pull that API key to call a service. So this is an API key from a third-party service. And that would allow me to process stuff on their behalf with some kind of backend thing, and placeholder right now is some kind of backend thing because I'm going to figure that out as another kind of micro project.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for storing that API key, are you planning on storing that in Bildr data or somewhere else?
I'm asking for recommendations. So to me, it's some kind of secret. So it's not something that it should be easy for them to reference and update, but maybe even difficult for an admin or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So he'd have to build a little secrets area.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things. Let me see if I can show my screen here really quick. Let's see, I need to target the window, or else everything's too tiny. Let me know if you guys can see that.
Yeah, I can see my secret Slack chats, Dorian.
Wrong one. That's it.
Don't want anyone knowing what I'm talking about.
Wrong screen.
This one. It's okay. There's nothing private in there. Okay.
You can see me scrambling last minute to get everything together.
Yeah, next time I'll use a machine with a camera.
And there's just a blank project, but I just want to go into data collection. So I just created a new one. So if you are going to store it in Bildr data, there's a few things that you would want to make sure to turn on, because by default, and again, let me go back. When you're in a data collection, there's this collection settings button.
Right.
And when you open that, if you notice by default, all the gets, creates, modifies, and deletes are allowed.
Right.
So the first thing I would do is turn that off for this setup. That way it won't return any information if the user is not authenticated. Depending on your setup, if you're going to allow modifications, or deletes, then you would toggle those off, on or off. But the key thing you would want to do for this one is enable user restrictions. And the reason is so that every record that's created in this table can only be accessed by the user that created it, basically the owner. So the access type will be owner creator only. You don't need any child collections unless you are going to create dependencies or related data associated to that. If you do, then this is where you do it. Just you'd go back to the main list, create your child collections first, and then come back to this one, assuming this is the parent, and you would just associate those child collections. And what that does is it'll take these permissions that are set on this parent collection and roll them down all the way to all the children's that are defined. That way you don't have to go set all those settings for every collection. It'll just push it down. But that would be the key thing when setting that up, because then that will prevent anybody accidentally getting access to someone else's API key, because this will all happen server side.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm glad I asked, because I'm sure I would have tried to roll something completely, extra that I don't need.
Yeah.
I also like that you already have this thought out, and it's in place already. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this whole area is in the next release is getting another update for restricting access. And I don't know if anybody has used custom claims on the routes yet, but we're basically bringing that full feature to the data collections, where you can have a custom claim associated to each of these methods. So like, if you only want to give the user specific access to the gets, if they in the Web3 world would be like if they hold a specific token, it will go run that check server side, return and associate that custom claim to the authenticated user. And then it will retrieve that if they hold that claim or not. So all that will get another upgrade here for another layer of, authentication and protection for those records. But we'll go into that later down the road.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Okay, so David, does that kind of get you moving in the right direction?
Yeah, this is what I needed. Just pointing in the right direction, get this little bit of the project going, and we're on to the next.
Okay, super.
Thanks, Dorian, and thanks, Cora.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, so next up, I don't think that he's in a call, but I do want to, I think this probably would be helpful for a lot of people, is William Lee is asking how to handle basic math operations in Bildr. Simple stuff like average, sum, etc. Dorian, do you have any projects that have some math operations set up in them, or could we set up like a super easy thing where just kind of go through and talk about them?
Yeah, we can try to do it. Depends on the scenario. I'm not really sure what their use case is. But we can just do like a simple, or what's that called, heading. I'm just throwing some elements on here.
Okay, sounds good.
And we're just going to do a simple set value just to set that math formula into that heading there that I added. So it just depends what they're trying to do. So like if they're just trying to do like straight arithmetic, then the best method is to just type it directly into the math formula. Down below, it gives you the different operators you can use. I think what they're trying to do is possibly they're trying to sum up a property value from an array of each object. Not 100% certain, but the reason is because they're calling out average and sum. But just in case that is the method, the quickest thing could be to just do a path function. So depending where that array value is on the page, either from a variable or from an element or wherever you're getting it from, I'll just say it's on a variable. And I'll just call it array value. No, that will change. But the quickest thing you can do is literally just do a sum. And in the parentheses, you would actually type the key name of that property in each object. And that will just do it. That's all there is to it. But
Okay.
without knowing the proper use case, just depends.
It's a little bit harder. Okay,
Yeah.
so he was asking how to handle basic math functions in a Bildr flow or actions.
Yeah, so if
so we
it's
have-
if it's basic, go with the math function or formula. If it's summing or averaging from an array, then just do it as a path, either as sum, average. You would just change the path based on what you're trying to do.
Gotcha. So you're using the element set value, action, and then you've got the element selected, and then for the value, did it default to from variable or did you change that?
I changed that because I don't know where they
Okay.
have the value. I'm just, in this
Gotcha.
scenario, I'm just pulling it from a variable called array value, which again, that doesn't really matter. It just depends on their setup.
Okay, gotcha. And then you created a path for that,
So it's
and
just
that's where you did the basic math.
exactly.
Okay. All right. Ray is asking if sum is a built-in Bildr function.
For the paths, yes.
Okay. What are the others?
There's a lot. Here, let me. Don't remember what the doc is. 1 second.
And question, is this going to be visible in the new paths UI?
Yes, yeah, you'll actually get the full list with definitions. But for now, let me chat a link here. Where's the chat?
So as you guys know, documentation has been such a pain point. I can't tell you how many times we've tried to hire people or tried to write them ourselves, and it's just really hard because of how much is in Bildr. Yeah. So we'll share what we have. And if you ever want to write docs for us, just send me a DM.
Yeah, and I think Unix wrote some up that are
Oh,
really
well,
good.
yeah. I mean, Jeroen does anything and everything wonderfully.
So that might be another one to look at too.
Yeah.
Different
Okay.
variations of it.
So Dorian just chatted those out. Fraser's asking about the ETA for the new path UI. So the path UI is done, but we are working on some other things that are going to be included in the update. I'd probably say it's maybe at this point, let's see, 2 weeks away from that being done. And then we have to do end-to-end testing, which on Bildr is massive. I'd probably say a padded estimate would be about a month out for that to come out. Now, if we can make it sooner than that, I would be very, very happy. And we'll always try to make it sooner than that. But I feel pretty safe saying a month out. Okay, so let's see, what's the question? There's
Yeah,
another
and Ray
question
asked
here.
one, is there a way to get to the paths? There is. You'd go to sources and then open it'll always start with document and then the region your project is in, .bildr.com. And in here, you'll find a folder called files and prod. And you'd want to open the boppy one. You will have to understand a little bit of code, but you can see all the different functions that we have. So here's
Dorian, can you zoom into your screen a little bit?
yeah.
It's pretty small. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Yeah, so if we keep going down, we'll eventually get to the specific.
Yes, Ray.
if we get to the sum somewhere in here.
Can you do a search, Dorian? Will that take us to it?
Sometimes it does, most of the time it doesn't work, right?
Okay.
It's in here somewhere, but you can get through them here, but the new UI will list them all and give you definitions.
Okay. Super. Jeroen's on the
Yeah,
call.
Copy is referring to the Builder API, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, and see there's Junix's link there.
Highly recommend if you ever see him post anything, go look at it and you will learn a ton. Okay, so I think that's pretty good for now if we don't have any further questions on math stuff. And then maybe William will have some follow-up questions that we can go through once he sees this video.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be documents followed by your region. So it's SCUS for US, and then it's, do you know what the other ones?
WEU and C, SEA.
WEU for Europe, yeah, and then CSEA for Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So next up, let's see, what do we have? Alex, do you feel like jumping on? I know you mentioned you had some, you were needing some help with some of the Stripe actions and integrations.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. I totally get that it's like very unique to my project and it's probably a pretty big problem. So I don't know if it's better kind of one-on-one, if Dorian maybe later on some other time we work through it, but I'm happy to show my screen here.
Yeah, let's
but
take
basically,
a look.
yeah, let me pull up. So I've got everything working. Hang on here. Okay, hopefully you can see that. My computer is melting down here. So I've got a function where logged in user sends an invite to whatever email address they put in here. Email sends out. In that email is an invite to make a contribution to a fund via a Stripe link. So they open their email.
Yeah.
This is the unique link that they get.
Yeah.
And then they click contribute now. It pops them into I may not have that page open. Doesn't matter. Pops them into a Stripe checkout.
Yep.
And they can figure out how much they want to contribute. They check out and they make a payment. So I have all that working,
Okay.
but I'm kind of trapped between Bildr and Stripe. So now that I have the payment made, I need to track who the payment is for in my app, as well as actually return that a payment has been made. Like I need that to show for the user in my Bildr app. So
yeah, and I'm assuming in the checkout session, when you initiate or create the checkout session, you have a return URL.
I do, yeah.
And that goes
And
back to a Bildr route.
Exactly. I don't have it open here, but I do have it back to a Bildr, like a splash page,
Okay.
which is somewhere on here. This guy here.
Cool. And then on this one here, do you have any flows in here yet where you're capturing any of that information?
No.
No. Okay, because what should happen is, and let me see, it's been a while, but let me go take a look at this. Just a second. Because when Stripe redirects to the success URL, they give you a key at the end in that URL that you need to grab. and then you can run another API call to Stripe.
Okay.
One
So
second.
so while Dorian looks at that, can I just say, Alex, I'm mega impressed by what you are building and how good it looks. Like, this is so
thanks.
cool.
I've had a lot of help
Wow.
from Drew, and it's literally just the SaaS starter. It looks like everyone else's one.
No, but I mean, it's awesome. I love how you've like made it your own, and
Yeah, I
you've
just
definitely added
Tweaked it. Yeah.
a lot more onto it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the purpose, right? Is like
Totally.
get going faster. Why rebuild something from scratch if you don't have to?
And I have a question. When you create the checkout session, are
Yeah.
you creating a Stripe user first or no? Like
On
a
Stripe
customer?
side or in?
Yeah, on the Stripe side, like, do you
No.
have a customer?
No.
Because you're wanting to link that payment to the user on Bildr.
Well, so it's kind of tricky. I mean, yes, but no. Like, I think at the end, in theory, they're a contributor, so they don't actually have to be a new user. But
Mhm.
thinking downstream, it would be good if we could capture them, create a new user, and then reattract them downstream at a later date. But I don't necessarily need like a new user.
Gotcha. And yeah, and you don't need it necessarily. I think all you need to capture, and trying to see what the response is. They send something back.
Yeah.
And you basically just need to capture that in whatever data collection you're trying to store that in, so that you can use that request, for the future. It basically ties it to that specific payment that they did.
That checkout, yeah. Because if I look,
I don't know if we can.
Hey guys,
Sorry.
Ray just chatted that Stripe gives you a session ID as part of the return URL, which gives you enough information to ask about the transaction.
Yeah, I think that was it's the session ID. I was trying to
Okay.
find, I couldn't remember.
Sorry, can you see my other window here with the Stripe checkout here?
Yeah.
So is it that that ID?
Yeah, that's it. Because CS is checkout session, and
Okay.
you're in the test environment, it's test.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should be able to capture that. So you'll need to store that somewhere, with that user, unless you're just trying to do it in real time, then you don't need to store it. But you'll basically grab that, and they're gonna. I can't remember if it's in the response or if they include it in the URL as a query param. But you'd basically want to store that and then do whatever you're trying to do. Like, are you trying to do another API call just to confirm that anything, or what info are you trying to get?
Basically just trying to get that trying to return that a payment has been made and how much.
Gotcha.
So
Then
yeah, like kind of the, your funding account be here $100 or something, so that like it would pick that up.
Yeah. Then you could just do a get against that checkout session.
Okay.
Because you're sending it already an ID, it'll return an array with objects with all the info, the prices, the quantity, the amount, and that should get you everything you need.
So an array. Okay. And then yeah. Okay. So I just pull out only the bits I need, and then I can use that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll have to probably use a path to dive into using dot notation, but yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a huge help. Thanks so much.
Okay. Ray did chat out some documentation for that process that might kind of tell you a little bit more specifically what you can pull. Okay.
Yeah, and I think someone asks, how do you get a value from the URL? So I can show that really quick.
Okay.
Is that the right window?
Yes.
And
okay, so Jeff is asking, on the Bildr side, how would you pull the code from the URL?
yeah, so depending where you're trying to set it, I'll just use a set value. Let's just say I'm trying to set it into that heading here. So what you will do is for the value on the action, you would change that to request. And then when you select that, then you get a select here where you can name the specific parameter depending on the URL formats. If it's just segments, then you would use segments. I believe in Stripe, it's a query string. So you would just select that type, and then I don't remember the exact name, but you would just type the name of that query string. And that's basically it. Maybe we can show it here really quick. Actually.
So sorry, Dorian, you have to nest it on page load.
Yeah, I just threw it on there, so it just runs on page load. But
Okay.
so see, and that's it. So like if the query string name was session ID, which is what I targeted, it grabbed that value and set it into that heading. But depending on the URL format, you would use the different types, because sometimes if it's segments or if there's an anchor, but typically query strings the most use. But yeah, I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Okay. Jeff, are you good on that, or any further questions? Okay, all right, super. Let's see, Ray's asking, what's the named parameter thing in contrast? Is that for dynamic pathing?
The name parameter, I've actually never used it, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let me see what it actually does.
I'm guessing that's something we can probably Google.
Yeah, so it's just doing params dot and then targeting the name and grabbing the value. Which I'm not honestly sure. I've never used it, but I'll have to go look into that and see. I have to get with the Dorel.
Okay. Cool. To be continued, Ray. All right, so let me see if there's anything that we missed, or what else is on our list. Okay.
I think there was
Okay,
that date
so,
addition, right?
pardon?
Adding the date.
Yes, that's from Frank. So Frank, I think, probably has a few things that we can show him. So let's talk first about, sorry, I'm having a brain fart. Okay, I'll read the question and then we can answer it. And then he I think does have some questions on data relationships. I guess, Frank, you've seen the tutorial and then you're just curious how it's showing on the front end. So Dorian, I know the SaaS starter project has data relationships in it. So maybe what we can do is, I think he just wants to see, maybe we talk about like building a single page app and then how you can link out to the, or pull the different data sets. I think he's wondering how they look, like how they're displayed. So we can talk about that a little bit, but first, his question is there a way to add a day to a date value in a variable? Can I do this with a math function, for example, date variable +1?
I can try showing you guys if I can share my screen, if it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, showing mine. Okay.
Check the share screen at the bottom of the toolbar.
Got it. Okay, so here, it's basically just a flow, and inside of the flow, I have a variable that's set on the page load, and it's called start date variable here. It's a date value though, so I wanted to know if I just added a +1, it'll add a date to that specific. It'll add like an extra date to that specific value. Hopefully, I explained myself correctly.
Yeah. The math function wouldn't do it because it wouldn't know which, like, is it the day, the month, or the year, or the time, the minute,
Sure,
second
makes sense, yeah.
that you're adding. But we have an action. If you go click on add action, and if you type date, I think it's called date add.
Date,
Yeah, it should be an under other. Yeah, so
oh,
date
add subtract. There we go.
Yeah, and this will get you what you're wanting.
Got
So
it. Got it. Makes sense.
basically, the date at the top is where you're getting the value, or you can set it static. The operators add or subtract. The value in your case would be 1 because you're adding 1.
And then
And then
unit
the
would be-
units is where you can specify what you're adding.
and then set it into, okay, this is pretty straightforward. This is great. Cool, that's nice. And I guess the last thing was, it's, so I've gone over the information on Discord, and it all makes sense, right? Like the whole relationships, how you're building the many-to-many relationships, it all makes sense. However, I don't think I've seen somewhere, anywhere on the videos where I can display that information. So I don't know if I should go over some of the stuff that I have here, but for example, I have lesson plans, right? And they're
Yeah.
made up of a bunch of different entries. How can I go, for example, if I am on the lesson plan page, this is
Mhm.
a single lesson plan. How would I display the rest of the entries associated with this lesson plan?
Yeah,
And I know I
so
have the relationship table, lesson plans entries here. So I would just wouldn't know kind of thing.
yeah, so you would use a set value action. So like, can we go into one of these grid row pages where you're trying to set one of those, and we can set one?
Here,
Yeah,
this is the
so
card kind of thing, yeah.
yeah, this is a card. So what's the data that you're trying to say here? I'm assuming there's a grid on here for one of these.
Well, I have, so this is the first time I'm actually using Builder. I don't know if it was possible, but my brain told me it could. So I did kind of
Yeah.
nested grids within
Yeah,
this
yeah,
card.
absolutely. Yeah, we do that all the time.
Cool,
And
nice.
technically this should work, but there's actually a bug that we're working on to solve it. And to
Okay.
get around it, instead of using the binding, you'll have to use a set value action. So the way you have it set up is exactly how it's intended to be set up, and this should have worked, but it's just you ran into that bug. So what we want to do is, so let's just fix it on like that grid that you have selected. So the first thing we'll do is let's go remove the data binding on that grid. So on the right side.
So what do you
Or
mean to this one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
click,
right
yeah,
here.
click that one, and then let's remove that. And I don't know if you need to look at your filters so we can replicate it.
Well, the filters was just,
Just the entities, perfect. Okay, so let's just remove that. So at the top where it says data collections, just toggle that to nothing. Yeah, the top one.
cool.
And then now what we'll do is go to flows.
What do you mean, like, events, maybe?
That's
On the
flows.
top left.
Oh, here,
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry, my dog wanted out of the office.
No worries.
Let
He's
him out.
slamming on the door, and he will break it too.
He's like the biggest husky you've ever seen.
Yeah, he looks like a Malamute, but he is a husky, he's just giant. Okay, so on the flows, what we want to do is we're going to create a new one, and you can just name it however you want. And then for the add action, we're going to search for set value. And then, yeah, that one. In the first argument, let's select that grid, because that's where we're targeting, where we're trying to put the
Let me
data.
see what I have it named as.
Yeah, and you can rename it if you want.
Standards.
Okay, so let's go back to the flows.
Or set entries data, right?
Yep,
And then
so there it
the
is.
standards.
Cool. And then for the value, we're gonna click on that link on the right where it says test, and we're gonna toggle that to data collection.
Wait, hold on, my computer froze, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. So I've seen a couple of users report that. So it's like something, I think there's like a memory leak or something.
Or I
Okay.
have like 100 million tabs open.
All right, so click on text there. Yeah, and let's change that to data collection. And we're basically going to do the same setup you had in the binding, except it's going to be inside of the action. And it's just to get around that bug that currently is there.
Cool. So what I had here was, so this is a relationship, right? So this is an
Yeah.
entry.
Yeah.
And there are different standards. There can be multiple standards associated with an entry.
Exactly.
So I made the relationship table entries standards, excuse me.
Yep. Yeah, it's perfect. And then for the fields, you can just get all fields since it's a grid. And then the filters is where the important part is. And then we'll select the field that is the relationship of the current record that we're on.
Which is
The
an
entries, right?
ID.
Yeah. And then where do you have the entries ID? It should be here actually, because it's a grid. So the value to filter with should just be from variable, and then the value is just ID.
How do I know what the variables are for a specific?
The variables are the field names. So there's two different methods to do it. I always use from variable just because it's very straightforward for me. But to be able to use that, you do have to know the IDs of the fields. You can get that by going to the data collection. You can also use, there's another element type, I think, called current user record or something. I'm not really sure what it's called. But that method, it first forces you to select the data collection and then the field. And essentially it does the same thing we're doing here, except it does it all in the background. But to me, this is always the easier way to do it.
Cool. Does that make sense right here? Variable name ID?
Yep. And that should do it. If we want to go preview that page.
Well, I don't really have it previewed yet, but I trust that it'll work.
Yeah.
I don't have like anywhere to preview yet.
Yeah, but that should do it, because basically, essentially, we're doing the same thing you had set up in the binding, but right now we do have a bug in production where only the top level binding works and anything downstream just fails. There's a bug and it mixes the ID. It basically takes the parent filter set ID as all the children, which is incorrect. But doing it this way gets around it for now.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, you know, you can preview what you're working on, right? And just put some like dummy data in there. If you click preview at the top.
I don't have it as a URL route, so do I have to have it as a URL route or no?
As long as you can get it from one of these routes. Like, how can we get to this entries card?
Well, this is how it's supposed to work, and I don't have it functioning yet. I'll probably ask for help at some point.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I create a lesson plan, it's supposed to automatically not only create that lesson plan entry, like record, it's also supposed to create a variety of different entries.
Gotcha. All the children or the related data.
Yeah, correct.
Gotcha.
So once I don't have these for,
gotcha.
I don't have the entries for this one. Yeah. So the question I had was, how would I display the entries on the front end? I guess it'll work like that, just the way I did it, right? Just make sure
the
that
same way. You're just a level higher.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely chat us on Discord if you get stuck, and we can definitely help out.
Yeah, it's crazy because I've always wanted to kind of make my own app.
Yeah.
But writing code manually was just, this doesn't work. This is just takes too long.
Yeah.
And so this is like mind blowing. I've been using Bildr for the past couple of weeks nonstop. It's pretty interesting. So
that's awesome.
The
app looks clean. Really nice UI.
Thanks. I'm trying. It's a little side project, I guess.
Yeah. That looks great.
Yeah, it does. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you were able to join today, Frank, and definitely like we do this every week.
Yeah.
So if we get stuck on what's up,
there's one thing we missed that Abdul just called out. There's one more step. If you go back to that page where we created that action, I think it's that one there. We forgot to add that flow that we just created to the page load. And I would actually throw it in the page binding, because then that way all the binding happens in the same group.
I want to set the set entries data flow.
Yeah, so if you go to nest, yeah, and then throw it in there. Because then it'll never run the action. So it wouldn't have worked.
That's right, sure.
Yeah. So now once you get all that working, that should work.
Oh, I have to do it for the rest of these. Okay, cool, makes
Yeah,
sense,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks, Jan and Dr. Abdul.
Yeah.
appreciate
Super awesome. Thank you for letting us help you out with that, Frank.
problem.
Okay, so it looks like we have 10 minutes. And Jan, let's see, Jan had a question about, I have a grid list that's being populated by an Airtable list records action. I then have a page that opens for each record in the grid list. I'm trying to work out a way when a user is on an individual record page that they have a button to move to the next record in the original grid list. Example, pagination, without them needing to go back to the list and select the next record.
Yep. Makes sense. Yeah, and this will actually be a good example of using the math function.
Okay, cool. Jan, are you able to show us your project so we can walk you through how to set that up?
Yeah, sure. Let me share.
Cool.
So very basic. You guys can see my screen now.
Yep, we can see it.
I've lost the cool. So yeah, this is the grid list here from the Airtable. Exactly. And then each one is, I've got like a 2-step page, but that's all working fine. But for instance, that this button or this button here on one of the page records could actually just pick out the next record in the list.
Yeah, makes sense. So let me look at a couple things just so we can see how we can structure the setup. The first thing, can you go back and click on the grid and show me the properties? Yeah, on the right side, and then just want to make sure the array index is being included. It is, it's toggled on. Okay, perfect. And then the next thing, can you go to the grid row page, little page, yeah, that one. And then can you show me the open action?
Yes, that would be this one here.
Yeah, so it's on click.
Advanced. Yeah, open destination page, exactly. And so I've actually got this an app up here, and it's all opening in that container.
Perfect.
So in the one app, exactly.
Okay, and then let's go to one of these pages on the right, the one that will have the button.
Yeah, let's do it with this one. Yeah,
this one here. Cool. And is that the button at the bottom, or?
Yeah, it's doing something else, but we can use it for that. It's like first sending to this step, and then that one will go to the next. But if we, it'll probably be quicker just to.
Cool.
Test it on
Yeah, we can just. So on the right side, or let's do new flow here. That's fine.
Yeah. So what, like this will be select new record.
This will be, yeah, whatever you want to call it, either the next record or whatever it is.
Awesome.
Cool. And then what we're gonna do is add an action called run flow on page.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. So that one there. Cool. And what we're gonna do is we're actually going to target the list grid row.
Okay, so
the row
that would
page.
be in the row page. Yeah.
Cool. And then the action we're going to trigger is the open, which I think this is a bug somebody reported, but we can get around it. If you go click on the page itself on the left, like go to the page, I think it's a cache.
The grid row page.
Oh, no, it's actually, we have the wrong page. It's called single record. So let's go back. So that's why it didn't show.
Exactly. Okay, yeah. I have noticed that when I'm deleting pages, they're still showing up in, and I tend to create and delete a lot of pages. So
Yeah, we'll need to handle all those. And
okay.
But let's go back to that unlock step 1 and go to that flow we just created. And so let's change that to a single
record. Yeah.
Record. Okay, now let's click in there. And what we want to do is call that open action.
Yeah. Nice. So that would be the open destination page. Yeah.
And down at the bottom, there's these variables. And I know these can be confusing. A lot of people don't know what these are. I think Junex actually recommended a good name change that we'll definitely need to implement. But what we want to do, what this allows you to do is it allows you to target a specific instance of this page displayed on that grid.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And what we're going to target, the variable name will be underscore array index, and it's a camel case, so capital I.
Yeah.
And for the value, what we're going to do is we're going to change this to a math formula instead of a text. So it should be all the way at the bottom. Yeah, math.
Yeah.
Perfect. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the current array index of the form we're in. So you're going to do that because it's in the variable, you're going to do an open bracket.
Just a normal one or a curly bracket?
The hard one,
Array bracket.
yeah. And then in here, I should have opened up. Can you do a backspace?
Yes, I've reported this as a bug as well for me. I'm not getting the suggested flows whenever I open this up.
Can you try this? Backspace that, add a space, and then do the bracket.
No.
Nothing. Weird. 1 second. Let me try it on my side here and see what's up. Yeah, for me it works without a space.
Because I thought it was maybe my ad blockers or something doing something on the page, but I turned all those off, but it's still
Okay, we'll do this. I'll have to debug that. It's probably something in the project, so I can't repeat it here, but I am going to create this for you and send you, and we'll just put it directly in the JSON.
perfect.
Jan, did you say you reported this as a bug?
Yeah, that I
Okay.
yeah, I think it was earlier this
Let me
week.
see.
Okay, so if you go to the chat, grab that whole value I just chatted in there.
Need to, yeah, perfect.
And then what we're gonna do is, if you put your mouse over the action instance there where it says 1 under run, a little bit to the left, that little left panel there at the top.
Yep.
Yeah. Click the 3 dots and go to the
Yeah.
JSON directly.
Cool.
And in here, the last object, you see line 37 where it has value.
Yeah.
And in between the quotes, paste that value I chatted. And then just save it. And then
Definitely
just reselect the action instance by just clicking on it again. Okay,
Nice.
that should do it. There's one step we're forgetting though. We'll need to go back to the single record page.
Yep. So this one's all good. Yeah.
And let's open the edit or the open action. So we need to pass the array index to the page we're opening.
This one, open
Yep.
destination page. Yep.
And oh, actually it's already set. Perfect, because you're already pushing it. So that should already have it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the only thing we should do now is bind that button to that new action we created on the unlock step.
Perfect. So that is.
And then I think it's the last step there, called select next.
Yeah. Good.
Cool.
Perfect.
And let's
Cool.
try it. Let's try it, see what that
Right.
does.
Let's see. So we'll be on this one. And then not right now.
Okay, so let's do this. Can you open the debug?
Yeah.
Or the inspectors, I guess the proper name. And let me get you.
Did I set that properly? Yeah.
A breakpoint. I want to see. Oh, when you're opening those records, they're taking over the whole screen, right?
Yeah, I've got like on this.
Like it's a separate route.
No, so it's all within this one page,
Okay,
and
so
they're just always opening up inside this container.
But it's replacing it. Like the
Yeah.
grid is gone. Yeah, then that
Yeah.
won't work. What you'll have, this setup will work, but what you'll have to do is instead of, and we can do it now, if you just duplicate that container because what we'll have to do is we need the
And then
grid.
basically just hide the grid at the top.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Got it.
then point the open
this one.
to this new one, because what's happening is the grid's getting replaced and now we
Yeah.
can't target the rows
Got it.
anymore.
Cool. And then afterwards, I'll just take care of the visibility of the grid.
Yeah.
In that action afterwards. Cool. All right. So then we'll go back to here. On this one, it's on this one.
Yeah, so on the open,
Destination and put in small record
Yeah.
page.
and then now let's try it. And you can,
Yeah, because I was like, that was like sort of breaking my logic. I'm like, how can it point to something that's not there anymore?
yeah.
Okay. Interesting though that it's still. I need to check the.
Yeah,
it's the
because
wrong-
we should have
the wrong-
still seen it.
Exactly, and now I've put the wrong page here. Hang on, I have to do that on this one. I have to use clue page instead of destination page. So let me just, sorry, edit this.
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Cool. And then I think I have to go back here and change this one also to this.
Oh, I see. It was the other action.
Yeah,
Yeah, got it.
cool. Nice. And that's down there. And then cool. Amazing.
Yeah, and to go back, you would just subtract 1. And
Yeah.
then one thing I would do before you run the flow, I would actually do a condition, because the array index, the first one's 0. So if the number is less than 0, then you know you're on the first one. So there's no,
Got
you
it.
can hide the button instead of running the flow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
and you can do the same if it's the last one. You would
Mhm.
just need to do a grid length on the grid to know the total and just subtract 1, because remember they start at 0.
Awesome. That yeah explains everything. Thanks.
Yay. Okay, awesome, Jan. So you good?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Dorian.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, that takes us to the end of today's session. Thank you everyone so much. I will upload this recording when I get a chance. And yeah, anyone who wants to hop onto that workshop, that Web3 workshop is starting now. There is the link if you want to register. Okay, well, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day and weekend. We'll catch you next week. Bye, everyone.
See you.